They threw their brother into a hole in the ground, and then they sat down and ate lunch. That's the part I feel chilling the most. Not the plot to kill him. Not the 20 pieces of silver. It's the meal. Genesis says they stripped him, threw him in the pit. Then they sat down to eat. There's a boy at the bottom of a dry cistern screaming, and his brothers are breaking bread. That's how far away people can get from each other. That's how deep the hole can be. Hold on to that. Because everything else you heard on Sunday is about how God handles distance. Ancient truth for the modern week. From the dusty roads of the 1st century to the high-speed life of the 21st, we're stripping away the tradition to find the heart of the story. I'm your host, Joe, and this is Monday to Sunday. Hey, I'm Joe Stein, and this is Monday to Sunday. Here's what this show is for. You sat in a pew on Sunday. Somebody read 3 chunks of scripture out loud at you. You maybe heard a sermon, and then you got in the car, and somebody asked about lunch, and by Tuesday morning the whole thing had evaporated. That's not a character flaw. That's just what happens. So we come back midweek and sit with it again. Slower, when you actually have room for it. I hope this is a nice little meditation break for you. This past Sunday was proper 14-year A3 readings. Joseph getting sold by his brothers in Genesis 37. Paul in Romans 10 saying the word is near you, and Matthew 14. This one should sound familiar. Jesus walking out across the water in the middle of the night. On the surface, they look like they have nothing to do with each other. Especially when you hear it like this. One is a family betrayal, the second one is a theological argument, and the third is a ghost story on a lake. But all these readings are doing the same thing. They're all about the gap between us and God, and who is expected to cross it. Let's start with Joseph. He's 17. His father loves him more than the other 10, and doesn't hide it. There's the robe. The long robe with sleeves, the one that says out loud what everybody already knew. And Joseph is not humble about it. He brings a bad report on his brothers. He's the kid who tells. Genesis is honest about all of it. It doesn't clean anybody up. The brothers are cruel, and Joseph is insufferable, and Jacob is a terrible father who has learned nothing from being in a family where a parent picked favorites, which is exactly the family he grew up in. Then Jacob sends him out to Shechem. Go now, see if it is well with your brothers and with the flock, and bring word back to me. And Joseph says, Here I am. That's a loaded phrase in Genesis. Abraham says it on the mountain. Jacob says it in the night. It's the word you say when you're about to be handed something you can't carry. Joseph says it on his way to a pit. He gets lost. A stranger finds him wandering in a field and asks him what he's looking for. I am seeking my brothers. Then this. They saw him from a distance, and before he came near to them, they conspired to kill him. Before he came near, they had time. The distance gave them room to plan it. Reuben talks him down to a pit instead of a knife. Judah talks him into a sail instead of a corpse. Neither one of them is being good. They're being slightly less bad, and slightly less bad is what passes for mercy in this family. 20 pieces of silver. A caravan headed south. And Genesis tells us one more thing about that hole, almost in passing. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. Not a well. Not a cistern with a few inches at the bottom. Empty. Dry. The lowest place in the story, and there's nothing down there at all. Now, before we go any further, I want to answer the question you're probably sitting with. Because Sunday's reading just stops. The last line the lector read was, And they took Joseph to Egypt. And then they closed the book and everybody said thanks be to God, which is a rough place to leave a 17-year-old. So does he make it? Yes, he lives. Let me give you the short version because you needed to hear the rest of this, right? He gets sold to an Egyptian official. He does well there, actually. Then he gets falsely accused of something he didn't do and thrown into prison, which is his second pit, and he sits in that one for years. Eventually, he interprets a couple of dreams for Pharaoh, and Pharaoh takes this foreign convict and puts him in charge of the entire food supply of Egypt. Then the famine comes, and the starving people who show up asking a powerful stranger for grain are his brothers. Psalm 105 actually gave the whole thing away on Sunday, if you were still tracking by then. He sent a man before them, Joseph, who was sold as a slave. They bruised his feet in fetters, his neck they put in an iron collar. And then, a few lines later, the king sent and released him. The ruler of the peoples set him free. Notice how fast that goes by. 2 verses. Slave, prisoner, second in the kingdom. That's 13 years. He's 17 in the pit and 30 when he stands in front of Pharaoh. 13 years covered in the space of one breath in a psalm. It goes by fast when it's sung. It did not go by fast for him. And here's the part I keep coming back to. When Joseph finally tells his brothers who he is, he doesn't say what you'd expect a man to say. He says, God sent me before you to preserve life. Sit with how strange that is. He does not say the pit was fine. Genesis never once says the pit was fine. He does not say his brothers were secretly doing him a favor. Later on he tells them flatly, you intended to do harm to me. What he says is that God was in the sending, not that the evil was good, that God was not absent from it. Those are different claims, and the difference matters enormously if you're in something hard right now. One of them is a greeting card. The other one is Genesis. Let's move on to Paul, in Romans 10. He's arguing about how a person gets right with God, and he does something clever. He picks up a line from Deuteronomy and repurposes it. Do not say in your heart, who will ascend into heaven? And Paul cuts in to explain, that is, to bring Christ down. Or who will descend into the abyss? That is, to bring Christ up from the dead. 2 directions, up and down. Climb to heaven or dig to the bottom. Paul says don't. Not because it's too hard, because it's already been done, and you weren't the one who did it. Then the line the whole passage hangs on. The word is near you, on your lips and in your heart. Near. The Greek there is engyos. Say it. Engyos. It means near, close, at hand, within reach. It's the word for a village on the next hill, not a country across the sea. It's the same root behind engyos, which in Greek meant a guarantor. The person who stands close enough to your debt to put their own name on it. Think of it as a co-signer in today's world. Not near like visible on the horizon, near like standing behind you with a hand on your shoulder. And notice where Paul says it is. On your lips and in your heart, your mouth, your chest. He's naming parts of your own body. The distance you were about to go climb or dig for has already collapsed to 0. Joseph's brothers had a gap between them and him, and they filled it with a plot. Paul says the gap between you and God has been filled by God in the other direction, without asking your permission. Which brings us to the lake. Matthew 14. Jesus has just fed 5,000 people, and the first thing he does after is get rid of everybody. He makes the disciples get in the boat and go on ahead. He dismisses the crowds. Then he goes up a mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. Meanwhile, the boat is out in the dark. Matthew says it was battered by the waves far from the land, for the wind was against them. They've been at it most of the night. It's the 4th watch, somewhere between 3 and 6 in the morning, the deadest part of the dark. And then he comes to them walking on the sea. Understand what the sea is in this book. In Hebrew imagination, the deep is chaos. It's what God pushed back at creation. It's the thing that swallows people. It is not a road. Jesus treats it like a road. The disciples' reaction is the honest one. They don't worship. They scream. It is a ghost! They cried out in fear. According to Matthew, Jesus takes no pause for effect and says, Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. The Greek in the middle of that is ego eimi, I am, which is either an ordinary way of saying it's me, or it's the name God gave Moses out of the bush. Matthew knows exactly what he's doing. Peter, being Peter, asks to come out. Jesus says, "Come," and for a few seconds, Peter walks on chaos. Then he notices the wind. He goes down. He gets out 3 words. "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him. Immediately. That's twice in this passage. Matthew wants you to notice that God does not deliberate. So here's what ties all 3 together. You did not have to climb up. God came down. Joseph goes into a dry pit, and then into Egypt, and the whole rest of Genesis is God working in the far country. Not by lifting Joseph out of the hole, but by going down into it with him. The pit was not outside the story. It was the road into it. Paul says, stop asking who will descend into the abyss. Christ went. The trip has been made. And Matthew shows you the picture. It's 3 a.m, the wind is against you, you are far from land, and the one place you were certain no one could come from, the water, the deep, the chaos, is exactly where he comes from. That's the theme of this past Sunday. God crosses the distance. Not God waits at the top of the distance for you to prove you want it. Not God is near if you get your life in order first. Peter is sinking when the hand arrives. That's the whole point of the sequencing. He is already going under. He has already failed the thing he asked to do. And that is the moment the hand shows up. Let me put it plainly for the middle of your week. There's a version of faith that's exhausting, and it's the version where you're doing the climbing, where prayer is a ladder, where you have to get to a certain altitude before God will engage with you, where the pit you're in, grief, or a job you can't stand, or something in your family that's been broken since before you were born, where the pit is proof that you've fallen out of range. Romans 10 says that's not the arrangement. The word is near you, Engys, already on your lips, already in your chest. Not a summit you have to reach, not a bottom you have to be hauled up from before it counts. Joseph didn't know God was near him at the bottom of that cistern. He couldn't have. All he knew was dry stone and the sound of his brothers eating. He was wrong about the distance. So are we, most of the time. And one more thing before I let you go. Come Sunday, if your church is on the same track, you're going to hear Genesis 45. Joseph standing in a room in Egypt, finally telling his brothers who he is. He weeps so loudly the whole household hears it through the wall. So this week is the pit. Sunday is the weeping. Both of them are the same story, and it takes a long time to get from one to the other. Sit with that. When you're in the 4th watch of something, when the wind is against you, and you're far from land and it's been dark for hours, the question isn't whether you can get yourself back to shore. He walks on that stuff. I'm Joe, and this has been Monday to Sunday. Thanks for walking this road with me. Now take this truth into your week, and I'll see you on the next chapter.